Hi, and welcome to One Acadiana's Candidate Conversation Series. I'm Keely McGibbony, and this is Andre Bro here on the team at One Acadiana. You may remember Candidate Conversation Series we launched during last year's election cycle. We are back with interviews with candidates for Louisiana Public Service Commission District 2. The District 2 Public Service Commission seat represents all or part of 13 parishes, including Lafayette and portions of St. Martin. So we want to be sure that voters in our region have a chance to get to know the candidates.
That's right. And for today's chat, we're joined by one of the three candidates, Nick Laborde. Nick, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thank y'all for inviting me. I spent 6 of the best years of my life in Lafayette. So anytime I get to hear more Lafayette people and that Lafayette accent, it just makes my day.
Well, wonderful. We're going to start with just the basics, Nick. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
So my name is Nick Laborde. My professional background, I went to UL not once, but twice. Go Cajuns. I don't get to say that in Baton Rouge very much, which I find myself in these days. I started a video game company when I was in college at UL. I did that for the better part of 10 years, especially while pursuing my MBA. And then eventually I started working for some startup tech companies that were located in Louisiana. And what I did was I realized I liked the people aspect. Like I had created products and commercial software, but I really like building great teams and helping figure out how to move the puzzle pieces around so that people could do their best work. And that was something that really inspired me, and that's the work I still do today as a consultant, helping organizations know how to give their people what they need to do their best work, which ultimately makes the company and the organization more successful. So that's just a little bit about me and my career.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And so next, can you give us an overview of the roles and responsibilities of Public Service Commission members or PSC members? What makes PSC such an important role?
So the PSC is probably the most important elected body in Louisiana that nobody knows about. It is something that everybody probably knows exists in their head, but they haven't quite really ever interacted with it and or until they realize they have an issue and they need to learn about the PSC. So, I mean, this is regulating all utilities, but the big one is electricity and setting electricity rates. Natural gas, water, telecoms, even things like prison phone calls. These are areas of policy and utilities that the PSC oversees. And these are the people that invest in our grid and really are helping decide the way that Louisiana charts its path in our energy futures. So it's just really, really important that folks engage with the commission, that they know who their commissioner is, they know who might be their commissioner, and they just really get involved and know that these are the folks that put us on the path that we're on with utility bills, whether going up, going down. If we invest in legacy energy, renewable energy, they are the agency that is at the junction point for our future.
Thank you. Looking from the outside in, give us your take. What has the PSC done well and what could it improve upon?
I think especially for the past 7-ish years that the incumbent Craig Green has been in this seat, he in particular brought to the commission this idea that we would really, focus on the facts and look at things that are good for people and ratepayers in general. And while we are different political stripes, I always looked at that commissioner and said he's really trying to advocate for ratepayers and for people. And somehow for the past 40 years, District 2 has elected commissioners that have really wanted to do that and just really decide we're going to use this power on the commission to help the ratepayers and advocate for them. So I think that was a good component of the makeup of the commission currently is there was a willingness to have paths that could be different from whatever we're seeing out of the governor's mansion or the legislature. Like this is its own body with its own ability and its own authority. I think it can improve on holding utility companies accountable to a greater degree. Folks who may have known a little bit about energy, maybe not, they have something called guaranteed profit where they are legally mandated to get a certain amount of return on their investments when it comes to anything they do with the grid, with bolstering or everything we have, putting up poles, building new generation. They are legally obligated to get required return on that investment. But we can also cut different deals if we have a different makeup of the commission and we're focused, very staunchly on consumers and protecting the ratepayers and investing in the grid. So when I say I want to make Entergy pay more, I really mean that. And we do have a pathway to doing that. And we're focusing on those deals. We're giving more options for ratepayers. And we're really making sure that these utility companies are doing the right things to keep the lights on through worsening storms and, hotter summers. Like, thankfully, we don't have many experiences of like rolling blackouts or anything in Louisiana. But if we have another drought summer like we did last year, I mean, that could happen if we're not prepared. So the PSC really needs to focus on making sure we're prepared for everything that's coming.
So thank you for your perspective on that. And to focus another question on your perspective looking in, what economic opportunities do you think PSC should be focused on?
Oh, I think we need to be investing in clean energy. Over the past 20 years, over 20,000 oil and gas jobs have gone away, and those jobs, unfortunately, are not coming back. And the oil and gas companies know that the energy transition is coming because they themselves want to invest in greater clean energy to power their operations because they see the cost savings and they want to go that route. So that is an economic opportunity because we could create more jobs. We could be number one and embrace the future, which is something we don't necessarily always think of our home state being on a path to doing. But we're at this extremely unique junction point. And in the year 2024, with this commission race, like, I know we're all caught up with president and Congress and these big, big things so far above you and me as individuals. But this race, the PSC District 2, can decide the direction that Louisiana goes. And if we choose to embrace the future, create more opportunities, be at the cutting edge of new technology, and investing in our grid, embracing the future. And I really think that if we did that, we'd create a lot of different opportunities in terms of jobs. We can help folks in those legacy industries transition into new jobs in that new updated industry. There's a lot of transferable skills there. And just the benefits from cost savings we get by including that in our mix in the grid of our power generation. A policy item I'm very excited about is bringing back one-to-one net metering, which would be if you generate a kilowatt hour from solar, you get credited back a kilowatt hour. It's currently not that way. It's only about 30%. Energy thinks that they're more powerful than the sun and they can set a price on it. So, that would create more economic opportunity as well. We could put solar panels on schools and drive down their energy costs. Like, there's just so much that we could do. So there's a huge economic component to this race as well.
Well, after hearing some of your thoughts on the PSC, let's imagine that you were elected. If there is one thing you could get accomplished during your tenure on the PSC, what would that be?
Oh, I'm going to do the politician thing and say, okay, well, it's two. So number one, it's a tie for me, honestly. My dream items would be, number one would be bringing back that one-to-one net metering, which I just discussed. And number two would be another thing we could be number one at first in the country. Let's try to ban disconnections in Louisiana. Every single state has some form of moratorium or protected group that energy companies cannot turn the lights off on those folks. And there are scenarios in Louisiana in extreme heat and I think extreme cold as well. I don't have the exact docket order remembered, where they cannot turn off your power, which is great. But we have over 150,000 people in this state, and the stat is a few years old, so it could be higher now, that spend a fourth of their income on utility bills. And that's just not right. Like, these bills are so high. And the places that have banned disconnections in various forms, their utility companies are doing just fine. They're still in business and they managed to help a lot of vulnerable people in the process. So those are the two big things that I would really like to see accomplished if I were to get on the commission.
Well, thank you. And to segue from that, from your priorities, is there anything else you'd like to share with voters about why they should choose you?
Well, and this is kind of almost like a continuation of myself and my background, because I was thinking about me as a person. And I didn't even tell you my stump speech, but the quick thing is, so I grew up in Marksville, Louisiana, in Avoyelles Parish. My dad's John Ed Laborde. He was elected mayor of the town the year that I was born in 1994. And I don't remember it because I was, just taking my first breaths in the world. But What I didn't realize at the time was I was being given a gift, the lens through which I would view politics and public service. Because growing up, years later, we'd ride through town, and anytime we'd see a fire engine driving by or we passed the fire station on the edge of town, my dad would point and get this big smile on his face, and he'd tell me the story about the thing he was most proud of as mayor, which was turning that volunteer fire department in the town into a full-time, fully funded fire department. And 30 years later, it's still there, it's still fully funded. And he would point, smile, and say, I helped my community. And the best part is his grandfather, my great grandfather, started the volunteer department. So in 3 generations, we saw fire protection in Marksville, Louisiana. So that informs my view of politics, which I view it as solving problems and helping people. And that's what you would get from me as a commissioner.
Thank you, Nick. We really appreciate your time today in helping the community get to know you better. One last question for you. How can voters further engage with you to get more information?
Sure. So you can go to my website, nickforla.com, and that's FOR. You can also find me on Instagram at nickforla. And then if you search Nick Laborde on TikTok, I'm on there as well. I've had some success talking about utility issues on that platform, and I really enjoy it as a place for civic engagement.
Well, thank you again. All right, everyone. That was Nick Laborde joining us. He's a candidate for Louisiana Public Service Commission District 2. Nick, thank you so much again for spending time with us. Good luck in the weeks ahead.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.